before getting started, right off the bat, depending on when you watch this, the US presidential election will either be right around the corner or already over. But regardless of the outcome in that election, the story itself is no less absurd, and hopefully everyone on either side of the political aisle here can take a moment in this video to appreciate that. Alright, with that said, today I want to talk about Fortnite and Kamala Harris, two subjects that obviously should never intermingle, because the Harris campaign, one of the most hilariously absurd displays of fiscal irresponsibility I think I've ever seen during a political campaign ever, has decided to make this whole Freedom Town initiative, supposedly reaching out to young gamers/voters in the process. When you actually look at the entire situation in context, it is just pure comedy. First things first, with just days to go in the 2024 presidential cycle, the Harris campaign decided to unveil a new Fortnite map called Freedom Town USA, which is supposed to reach out to young voters and appeal to the gamers, if you will. Okay, cool, sounds fun, and they had this whole reveal trailer on their social media pages with a soundtrack by Megan Thee Stallion, or Megan the Stallion, I suppose. But a few seconds after you first hear about it, I'm pretty sure everyone starts to scratch their heads, because why would you advertise policy positions, or an overall political campaign, generally speaking, to a bunch of Zoomers and Gen Alpha children who can't vote? It's actually really funny, but I'll go through step by step from the beginning. For starters, Freedom Town USA, which is what the Harris campaign map is called, and they've even got a whole website for it, doesn't allow guns. It's called Freedom Town, and it doesn't allow weapons, which makes it immediately one of the least popular maps in the entire game. If you go to Fortnite.gg and look at real-time player stats, you have to go back 13 pages before you find Freedom Town, which is less than 400 concurrent players right now. Just for the sake of comparison, random fan-made maps with zero marketing that don't come from a presidential campaign often have numbers that are 10, 20, 50 times higher than that very easily. Second important thing, as funny as it is to have a map called Freedom Town from a political campaign where they take away the guns, in a game that's popular because of its Battle Royale combat component, the entire thing appears to be openly violating the Epic Games terms of service. From the Island Creator Rules on the official Fortnite website, quote, "Whether commercial content or not, your island and your island's metadata must not include calls to action outside Fortnite, solicitation to join, participate in, or donate to a real-world religion, political organization, or military organization, product claims, dates of offer, or pricing," end quote. Sure, you could argue that they're just advocating people go and vote regardless of party affiliation, but that's still a call to action outside Fortnite, which makes this a pretty blatant violation of their terms. To be fair, no one's playing the map, and no one really cares, but the fact that no one's playing the map and no one cares about it logically segues into my next point, which is that you probably couldn't even find a worse way to spend a bunch of campaign funds if you directly tried to. Bear with me, because now it gets a little bit more complicated, but publicly available statistics of the Fortnite player base overall look like this, from Statista sourcing Verdo. 62.7% of the player base are between the ages of 18 and 24, 22.5% are between the ages of 25 and 34, 12.7% are between the ages of 35 and 44, while just 2% are above the age of 45. Right away, those numbers are completely and totally wrong, obviously, because they don't even acknowledge the age brackets below 18. But rather than simply making a claim, I want to put numbers down and showcase just how unbelievably stupid you have to be in order to dedicate political campaign resources to a Fortnite map called Freedom Town, which doesn't have guns, and advertises Kamala Harris's policy positions like small business tax incentives or affordable housing. Let's do it like this. Pretty much every single demographic claim out there tracks back to one single study by Verdo Analytics, but that study assumes that literally 0% of the Fortnite audience are under the age of 18. That's obviously not true, and yet everyone says it, so how do I go about disproving it? Well, according to GWI Consumer Research in two different studies from first quarter 2021 and first quarter 2022, which surveyed 13,000 participants each and was a few years ago, and the numbers are growing, just keep that in mind, the percentage of gamers who had played certain games/played them in the last month included 40% of Generation Alpha respondents who were born after 2010. That means, in no uncertain terms, 40% of the entire Generation Alpha gamer study play Fortnite, and yet the most dominant publicly available statistics for the Fortnite player base claim that the entire audience is above the age of 18. That notion could not be further from the truth. The fact is, an enormous percentage of the Fortnite audience are like, what, 12, 13, maybe 14 years old, and yet the Harris campaign is devoting resources to make a map that takes away one of the most integral mechanics of the entire game and then tries to motivate the player population into voting for her, which they obviously can't do. It's already very on the nose how stupid the whole project is just from that alone. But how about this part? Yeah. Turns out Epic Games at the time received the single largest FTC fine ever for violations of COPPA, which is the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, because they were, quote, using privacy invasive default settings and deceptive interfaces that tricked Fortnite users, including teenagers and children, end quote. Keep in mind, the company was penalized almost $300 million, and COPPA pertains to children under the age of 13, which means Epic Games was using deceptive Fortnite monetization on children who not only can't vote, they also can't really do anything. The complaint itself alleges that Epic Games collected data on these children, thus the fine, but the point is to demonstrate that while publicly available metrics often, very often, refer to the Fortnite player base as majority 18 to 24, like 60% of them in those claims, that claim is nothing but fiction, and the real audience is extremely young. This is something widely known by pretty much any content creator out there, any streamer, any YouTuber, etc., because their audience is majority children. They know it, they cater to it, and they monetize it, which makes it even more hilarious that a political campaign would devote their resources to pursuing this particular game, if they're reaching out to gamers, as a way to court the young adult voters. Freedom Town USA is attempting in its gameplay to expose players to Kamala Harris's policy positions. An example would be affordable housing stances or small business tax credits, which are featured directly in the map. And sure, some video game players have a small business or care about affordable housing. I myself have a small business, so a tax credit policy position would be worth understanding for me. But how many Fortnite players are not only legally able to vote, which is not that many of them, but also have a small business? Realistically, I don't think I could even find a worse way to spend campaign donations compared to this, which is really saying something. All of you watching, at least in America, have likely been completely inundated with political advertising. If you're watching this before the election, you probably got a political ad right before the video, you'll get another one after, and you might even get one right in the middle, unless you have ad block, but YouTube is fighting tooth and nail to make ad blocking impossible, so there's that. But my point is that there's a monumental amount of money being poured into the presidential race right now. However, that doesn't mean you have to just set the money on fire. Kamala Harris heavily outraised Trump in the last portion of the election cycle, but between them, according to the New York Times at least, they spent $500 million, with a billion with a B, in 16 days. That's an unbelievable amount of money, and at a certain point, especially when you consider something like Freedom Town USA, it becomes clear that they're not just spending money, they're openly throwing it away on things that might even have negative overall value to their campaign. While looking into the topic for this video, I found thread after thread after thread of people citing the metrics where 60% of the player base is supposedly 18 to 24, saying things like, oh, well, that makes sense then. And I'm honestly baffled by the amount of people who genuinely think that this was an understandable use of funds. It isn't. That's not to say that Trump is any better with his campaign funds, because he's not, but the cross-section of swing voters who not only play Fortnite in the first place, which is basically none, but would also be influenced by this kind of thing, ends up being a number so small that any realistic campaign manager or any statistician involved with the campaign should immediately realize that it's not worth spending money on. Look at this, as if I haven't proved the point already, but look at this. This is from Vice News. Quote, Kamala Harris dropped a new custom Fortnite map. I promise you read that headline correctly. Kamala Harris is taking her campaign right to Fortnite in a truly surreal way. Further down, maybe it's because I'm so game-pilled and I'm not even a Fortnite guy, but it's a pretty cool move. End quote. That has got to be one of the most out-of-touch things I've read this entire year. It gets better, though. Quote, the vice president of the United States promoting a Fortnite map is dope AF, and I'm here for it. Me too. Additionally, at the risk of shaking the foundation of my unbiased journalistic integrity briefly, I do think it's insane for a presidential nominee to do something like this, so people who play video games still get ignored when it comes to certain areas of recognition. Furthermore, there are still people who think gaming isn't a legitimate art form, after all. You can laugh all you want. This is how you reach young people. It's true. You gotta dance in these circles if you want folks to vote for you. Otherwise, you're leaving crumbs on the table for your opponent to potentially clean up. Seriously, though, read the following sentence and acknowledge it as a reality. Kamala Harris, the sitting vice president and current presidential nominee, released a Fortnite map as a legitimate piece of her campaign. What a world. End quote. What a world indeed. When they say crumbs, they absolutely mean crumbs, because the actual voter metric upside to this move is probably negative. I would bet pretty much anything I have that this not only didn't gain her any votes, it actively lost her a few. I obviously can't prove that, but watching the mainstream media unironically praise the release of a Fortnite map called Freedom Town, which doesn't allow guns, in Fortnite, with the player base being what it is demographically, has dealt a pretty major blow to my impressions of general political aptitude. I know I'm not the only one who sees this and realizes how dumb it is, and because of that, I wanted to talk about it publicly. In the end, political campaigns will waste money on whatever it is they feel like, and they've certainly got plenty of it to waste, and they've been doing it a long time, but this felt like a pretty extreme example of irresponsible spending, and I'm still confused why anyone with an ounce of common sense would pitch, execute, promote, and then stand behind it, while the media praises it. You could have done anything else with that money, and it would have been better spent. What a world. If you want to support the channel, check out the links down below. A special VPN deal, locals and Patreon for monthly memberships. I won't take your money and spend it on a Fortnite map, don't worry. And more, but I'll cut it there and stop rambling. As always, thank you all for watching, question everything, and have a nice night.